The battle continues in the sixth iteration of the series Clash of the Titans between Stockfish and Alpha Zero. During our last video, Stockfish with the white pieces annihilates Alpha Zero with the black pieces. But in this episode, Alpha Zero is playing black and strikes back. By the way, the color of the day is pink and it has nothing to do with the game. And the game continue with white playing 1 e4. Black respond e5, knight f3, knight f6, and we have the Petrov defense on the board. Stockfish captured the pawn on e5. Alpha attacks the knight, and Stockfish, being the world's most powerful chess engine, sacrifices the knight, and Alpha accepted the sacrifice piece. White further develops its pieces to knight c3, and black also developed a piece to e6. Game continue with d4, further controlling the center, and Alpha moves the king back to g8. Now, Alpha Zero probably believes that the king is much safer on the g8 square than on the f7 square. It's a very typical Alpha Zero move because Alpha Zero, as we all know, values more on king safety and pieces activity. Now, let me show you a variation if in case the black pieces or Alpha Zero played any random developing moves such as bishop e7 rather than moving the king back to g8. Now the game continue with white pushing to f4, further developing its pieces and occupying the center. Rook f8, f5 attacks the bishop, bishop retreats, then bishop c4 with a check, and the king can now retreat to the only available square, which is e8. Now white can continue by castling short, and in this position white has a 1.6 advantage. 1.6 advantage is nothing to a human. However, if an opponent gives Stockfish a 1.6 advantage, therefore Stockfish can guarantee that it will win the game in the future. Therefore, being Alpha, one of the powerful chess engine, moved the king back to g8 instead, rather than playing any random developing move. And the game continue with bishop d3, c5 attacks the center. Now, in this position, let me show you a variation. If white respond with d5, then bishop g4 attacks the queen, f3 blocks the attack, bishop h5, h4, knight b to d7, g4 attacks the bishop, bishop retreats to f7, and then white further advances the pawn to g5, attacking the knight, and at the same time gaining more space on the king's side, and soon will break black's position on the king's side. And if the knight moves to h5, then f4 will follows. And in this position, if we look at it, you don't want to be in this position if the avalanche starts falling, because this will be losing for black. Therefore, the game continue with black playing c5, attacking the center, and then white captured the pawn on c5. Knight develops to c6, c takes d, bishop takes d, h3, h6, queen e2, g5, bishop d2, knight d4 attacking the queen, and the queen retreats to f1. Rook c8, castle long, queen a5 putting pressure on the knight and the a2 pawn. f4, bishop a3. Now AlphaZero probably thought, oh, you think you're the only one who can sacrifice a piece. Now I'm giving you my bishop. However, Stockfish declined the sacrifice piece and played king b1 instead. Now, let me show you a variation in case if, let's say, Stockfish, instead of playing king b1, captured the bishop on a3. Let's say, for example, then the continuation will be queen takes a3 with a check, king b1, the only square, rook takes c3, the only defending or the only defender in the position, bishop takes c3, bishop takes a2 with a check, king a1, and now knight takes c2 with a check, bishop takes c2, bishop b3, king b1, queen a2 with a check, and checkmate. Next move. Therefore, the bishop on a3 cannot be captured, and Stockfish moved the king to b1. Game continue with bishop takes b2. Alpha said, oh, you won't capture my bishop, then I will be the one to capture your pawn. And what if in this position king takes b2? Let's say, for example, king takes b2. Then the continuation will be queen b4 check, king a1, rook takes c3, the only defender again in the position, then rook b1, queen a4, threatening checkmate in one move. Therefore, the bishop that captures the pawn on b2 is like a gangster. It is untouchable. Even the mighty Stockfish cannot capture it because Stockfish knew that the position is losing if the bishop will be captured. Therefore, Stockfish played a different move and developed or attacks the knight on f6 by playing knight d5. Game continue with queen a4, further putting pressure on the a2 and c2 squares. A knight takes the knight on f6 with a check. King g7 attacks the knight retreats back to d5, knight takes c2, rook c1, bishop takes d5, e takes d, bishop f6, rook takes c2, queen d4, threatening mate in 1, bishop c3 blocking the diagonal, rook takes c3, bishop f5 because it has to run away. It was attacked twice by the queen and the rook, so it moves up, and then rook b3 with a check. Another beautiful sacrifice from or by AlphaZero. And then since the king cannot move to a1 because the diagonal's been covered by the queen, so the king has only one square to move, which is c1. So the king moves there to c1, and in this position, Alpha Zero sacrifice again the rook to b1 with the check. And since this file is controlled by the black queen, therefore Stockfish was forced to capture the rook on b1, and the game ended with queen a1 checkmate. I hope you enjoyed the game. Dinhin na lang tataman. Hantod susunod. Bye for now.